Thank you all for coming today. The outpouring of love and respect that we have received for Clemens has been tremendous. It is definitely reaffirming that we have made the right choice in selecting you to join the Justice Court. When speaking about his struggle for economic and racial equality, Martin Luther King Jr., who will forever be a part of our nation's moral conscience, once said, "True peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice," which I know you get. So I believe today, with the swearing in of Clem Landau, we are ensuring true justice continues to prevail in this great city. Clemens believes that the Justice Court is the most important part of our judicial system because it is where most people in this community will encounter this branch of government. It is at this level of our justice system where problems and societal ills can be exasperated at an individual level, or where people can find peace through true justice. Judge Clemens Landau will ensure it is the latter, not only because of his own values, but because it is the undeniable mission of Salt Lake City's Justice Court and all that are served there. I consider this appointment one of the most that I will make as mayor. Judge Landau, you are representing who we are as a city. And most importantly, you are representing all we strive to be as a city. As you take your oath today, remember this, but also always remember all the people who are here to support you today. Here to help you succeed and take on this tremendous role. Thank you for saying yes, and all my best to you as you take this endeavor on. I am confident that we have made the right choice. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Zimmerman. Clem worked with us until just recently. Mayor Biskupski, council members, judges, court staff, and friends. Clem asked me to speak here today as someone who knows the justice system and the justice courts, and someone who's had the pleasure of working with him closely for the past 6 years.
You can leave it working.
Joanna will be speaking after me, so I'm going to leave the interesting meanderings of Clem's personal life to her. I'll tell you a bit about my experience with Clem. Give you a feel for him that reaches beyond the list of his accomplishments, which is, if you look at the program, is impressive. One that I hope will help you understand a little bit why I think Clem will be an outstanding Justice Court judge. Clem first came into my awareness in 2012, some months after Troy Booher, Linda Jones, and I formed Zimmerman Jones Booher, which is a boutique appellate law firm. We were looking for another lawyer to fill our ranks. As background, our firm is different. We characterize it as profit-making, but not profit-maximizing. We expect lawyers to work less hours than a traditional law firm, and we pay significantly less because our profits are less. We formed the firm with an intention that our lawyers would have more personal time to spend with family and outside interests, and time to be able to do pro bono work for the community and for clients. So Clem applied for this vacancy. His legal resume, as you can impressive. He's a top law graduate. He was editor-in-chief of the Law Review. He clerked for Judge Benson, who's here today, and then he clerked for Michael Murphy on the 10th Circuit, who's an old friend of mine. He was a litigation attorney at the time at one of Utah's premier law firms, and he was broadly engaged in the community. I was really impressed with him and hoped he'd join us, but I wondered what drew him to us. Why was he considering leaving a top-notch law firm to join our new enterprise at a substantial sacrifice of his own long-term economic interests? And I think the answer was that he valued more than money the opportunity to spend more time with his family and give more time to the community. Critically, he and Joanna had recently adopted 2 children, Aziza and Quincy, who were here. Aziza was 2, and Quincy, I think, was 6 months at the time. Both Clem and Joanna were working. He liked his law firm, but thought it would be very difficult to attempt to balance shared child rearing and law practice in a traditional firm setting. Our approach to practice seemed to make that potentially easier. He asked us about having small children in the office. We didn't see why not. So he joined us. Now, Clem's energy and his heart manifested itself in the way he juggled family and work. Soon after he was hired, his office was furnished with a crib, and Quincy and Aziza were in regular attendance. None of us in the office had ever worked with young children in the office, but I'm happy to say it turned out to be a non-issue. The occasional commotion caused by the children was not a problem for the lawyers or anyone else. In fact, it was a pleasant diversion. Clem managed to balance work and children by always doing whatever was necessary, apparently without slighting either side of his life. He might work far into the night if there was a deadline after Joanna had relieved him of children. You could tell that by the timestamp on the documents. And as the children grew, he spent much more time outside the office, immersed in their educations and in the broader community that serves minority children and strives to widen their opportunities. All the while, he kept serving his clients. Now, I want to just tell those of you that are going to work with him, he has a sort of humorous irreverence in him that you have to learn to watch for. It's nothing serious, but it's enough to be playful. The court staff should look out for that. And he has personal agendas you need to watch for. For example, Clem loves to snack, and toast is a really easy snack. So, the first anniversary of our law firm, the younger lawyers presented Linda, Troy, and me with a toaster with the firm's initials engraved on it. I thought it was a little odd. But Clem was in charge of the gift. At the time, we officed across from Eva's Bakery on Main Street, and we often bought bread over there to snack on. Soon I noticed the bread was disappearing at a rapid rate. In fact, I think I've seen a loaf disappear in a day, maybe. Clem turns out to be the principal user of the toaster. And of course, he was also the principal user of the next anniversary gift we received, which was a bread box. I've been told he's been known to leave a meeting to go out and get a piece of toast and come back in. So expect to see a toaster in the court somewhere and a bread box. He may also try to make you healthier and calmer. He loves yoga. And Clem used to walk from the Kearns building to the federal courthouse once a week for a free yoga lesson. When we moved into the Felt building, we found with a large room that we didn't have any use for. So Clem quickly persuaded us that it would be a brilliant PR move for our law firm to pay a yoga instructor to come into the office and offer free yoga for lawyers once a week. We tried it, and now 2 days a week we have free yoga for lawyers in our law office. Clem put together the invitation list. He sent it out to a long list of lawyers to get them to come. It's amazing how few still will accept something that would be good for them, even for free. But a number of the lawyers in the office still participate. So watch for yoga in the courthouse. There are other things about Clem you should know. He likes German beer, which is a tribute to his personal ancestry, and it's a fondness I share. And beware, we recently put a Scrabble board in the office, so lawyers were trying to get more active, socialization in the office. And Clem, I have to say, confesses that he cheats at Scrabble. It's gotten to the point where anything that resembles a word in any language is considered fair. Even Klingon. I have to say it actually makes the game more interesting and takes the competitive edge off, and lawyers don't need anything that's got a competitive taste to it. But all that aside, let me say a few serious things about Clem and about the job for which he's been selected. Why did he seek this position to join the ranks of the judges serving on Utah's justice courts? I think it's because of his sincere conviction that these courts are where the vast majority of citizens first encounter the law, and a place where lifelong impressions of the justice system are forged. In fact, when I asked him why he applied for the justice court, because it seemed to me an unusual choice, rather than the district court, he told me he was not interested in a district court where people were simply fighting over money. He wanted to work where the average citizen meets the system, where ordinary people are the most affected in their everyday lives, and not where institutions wage battle. He wants to see that ordinary people are treated fairly and with respect. And when he told me that, I couldn't argue with him. We need that. As Judge Benson says, we were walking over. As proud as we are of the legal system, the fact is the place where it affects most people is the place where the least resources, the least energy, and the least prestige are bestowed by culture and by society. It's a fact that the crimes charged in justice court are labeled minor offenses, but the consequences of convictions can follow people for a lifetime. And the civil judgments entered there where defendants seldom have lawyers can be economically devastating to them. Clem would like to help to make this high-volume system work more smoothly. He's also deeply concerned that the rights guaranteed by the Constitution to criminal defendants be preserved and conscientiously administered to the benefit of all who appear here, just as they are for those charged with more serious crimes in district court. It's a concern for fairness that is central to who Clem is. I know that this court is a challenging place because of the high volume and the fact that many appear without paid counsel, both in civil and criminal matters. I was a member of a task force that spent some 5 years studying how Utah trial courts, including justice courts, administer defendants' rights in criminal cases. The study showed that a lack of funding by local government and occasionally a lack of appropriate training for justice court judges could result in a defendant's rights being slighted, all with significant consequences for the individual. As a result of that study, the state established an Indigent Defense Commission, which I now chair. It is charged with providing local governments with standards for indigent defense administration and with making grants to improve defense services. Now, I think Salt Lake's justice courts probably perform much better than the average justice court because the judges are full-time. In most courts, they're part-time judges. But I know that in this court, like every justice court, the crush of business in the court places immense pressures on prosecution, on judges, and on defense counsel to follow the legal niceties. These these are pressures that must be resisted, I think. Justice should not be less fairly administered in small matters than it is in large. And let me assure you that Clem will dedicate himself to serving this system, the people who work here and those who appear in this court. He will serve them with his keen mind, his passionate energy, and his compassionate heart. I want to congratulate you, Clem, on this appointment, and the mayor and the city council for selecting and confirming him. His appointment is a manifestation of the increasing awareness across the nation of the long-term impact justice courts have on the lives of the people who appear there. And it's a sign of Clem's deep civic concern. His appointment is a good omen for the future, as the mayor said. And I can guarantee you, none of you will be disappointed. Thank you, Clem.
I'm the director of that commission. Michael was briefly both of our bosses, small lake city. But I think I am better served here today making the mayor slightly question her choice and having city council sort of have a twinge of regret, but just a twinge, and to give the justice court judges some idea of why you're in for fun and adventure that maybe you didn't know you were. So a lot of you have known Clem for 2, 3, 5, I think 12 out there somewhere. I've known him for, I think, 22 years is the total. We'll celebrate our 18th marriage anniversary this year. We were children when we got married, but I'll get to that. We all know he's a brilliant attorney. It's not what I'm going to talk about. So 22 years ago, I met Clem after college. We were both living in Boston. My best friend and his best friend were dating. His best friend was in a cappella. Clem sings a cappella. Used to sing a cappella. He can still sing. Make sure you note that. He would have these big dinner parties at his house where he would just invite everyone. And so I came over with a bunch of people, and I saw, first time I met him, I said, he's tall, okay? I like those things. What I didn't know was that he had just cut off 2 feet of hair. He was a frisbee playing, a cappella singing hippie in college. I later learned that he had cut off the 2 feet of hair so that he could have his ambulance driving job. He was an EMT, which explained why he always wore a polyester suit with a clip-on tie, so that when he was vomited on, bled on, or peed on, he could just clip the tie off and put it in bleach. I know, gross, but he's so gross, right? But he was tall, so I was still interested. He was living in an apartment that was condemnable. It was 3 guys after college, secondhand everything. They had a toilet paper roll maze above the toilet, and the goal was to finish your business before the ball got through the maze. It was gross. It was just gross. And with the secondhand everything, he had a secondhand waterbed. But I ignored all the warning signs that was like, so I was working at an art gallery at the time, and he was working in the ambulance, and he'd pull the ambulance up and park it outside the gallery and come in and clip on tie, and we'd chat, and his partner would be still sitting in the ambulance or awkwardly like looking at art that didn't really care about what we chatted. It's great. Slow times at the art gallery. There was also an art gallery in Provincetown that I worked at, so we would drive out to Provincetown from Boston together, and it's about a 45-minute drive like Salt Lake City to Provo, but when you get to P-Town, you get Provincetown, you get sandy beaches and thousands of gay people. When you get to Provo, a little different. Nonetheless, long drives to get to know each other. I learned that this guy was compassionate and loving and very dedicated, and that this was going to be fun. And I also learned that he was very persuasive. So persuasive that we decided to abandon all of our career prospects, our jobs. We quit our jobs, we bought bicycles, and we went on a bike trip. Clem had done a bike trip before where he found himself crossways with a Syrian guard at the border, and that was not what I was interested in. But I wanted an adventure. So we went to Poland, because of course, to go to Poland on a bike trip. But it was full of history. I have family ties to Poland. And there was a lot to do. So we spent about 45 days biking through Poland. What Poland had in June of 2000 was a lot of rain. So 45 days on bicycles in the rain with a guy I'd been dating for like 18 months at the time. And that is an adult sorting hat. So if you want to know if you're going to marry someone, go on a bike ride in the rain for 45 days and camp with them. And if you don't get on a flight home, it's going to stick. So I kept biking. We kept biking for months. We went through Romania, or into Slovakia and Hungary and into Romania. And by the time we got to Romania, we were a little sick of Eastern European food and biking, and we were gross also. And so we decided to get on a bus to go to Turkey, because Turkey was sunny and had delicious Mediterranean food. So we got on this bus in Romania, and it was like 10 hours of travel, none of the windows open, and everyone was smoking nonstop. And we had to go through 2 borders. We got to the Bulgarian border, and that was okay. Some guard yelled at us for something, but it was fine. And then it got to be the middle of the night when we got to the Turkish border. And we had American passports, and we found out in the middle of the night at the Turkish border that you needed, at that time, $100 in U.S. currency only to get into Turkey. We had been biking for 5 months, and we're so far away from U.S. dollars that we had nothing. But there was a large, very tattooed man on the bus with rolls of dollars, like, falling out of his pockets. And so Clem, in the middle of the night at the Turkish border, talked him into loaning us $100. There was no sign that we could repay this money. Not looking like people who should be loaned $100. But it worked. He's very persuasive. We borrowed the $100. We walked him to the ATM the next morning. Luckily, the ATM worked. Luckily, we got him money. It all worked out. We enjoyed Turkey. So we biked around Turkey and enjoyed it. I remember getting amazingly sick, and Clem hiked over a mountain to get Cipro so that I wouldn't die in a hotel room, which was very heroic, and I was very grateful. And while we were there, we learned that his family, who lives in Germany, was vacationing in Croatia. And if you can do your geography, Turkey's over here, Croatia's over here, there's a bit of an ocean. We took a cruise ship is a relative term, to Turkey, or to Italy, and then back over to Croatia. We were too cheap to buy beds on the cruise ship, so we slept on the deck. So it was like 2 days of deck sleeping, and we waited in long lines for really bad food because there was literally nothing else to do. So that was our cruise to Italy. Croatia is a series of islands, but we started in Dubrovnik. We ended up island hopping, and then we finally got on a train to get to see his family. And getting on trains with 2 big bicycles packed with stuff was hard enough, but then there were fires on the train tracks, so we had to get out of the train and get on a bus. But we walked toward the bus, and the bus driver said, no. No way, no how, not with your bikes, you're not getting on the bus. So we're in the middle of nowhere at night in Croatia. Small town, no hotels, nothing. But we had a tent. And so we walked. It was right after the Yugoslav and Croatian wars, too, right? We're back in 2000. And so landmines were sort of on our mind. But we walked over to the nearest park we found, which I don't know if you recognized it that night or just in the morning, turned out to be a highway off-ramp. It was like, that was just right by the highway, and that's where we slept, in the middle of the field. Woke up to some drunk guy wondering what these 2 guys were doing, sleeping in a field. Anyway, we made it through the landmines, we made it through that, and we eventually made it to his family in Croatia. So these were his cousins who he had lived with for he spent 2 years of high school in Germany, and they were the Munich side year. He also lived in Berlin, but they were very close cousins. I heard amazing things about them. They had 3 kids, he loved them, and when I met them, the beach they were at was a nude beach, and they were completely naked. And so I got to know Clem's family really, really probably for a week on the beach in Croatia, which was lovely. We ended up living with them after we biked up to Germany. They had to wear clothing in Germany. It's cold in Germany, so they were clothed, and truly lovely people. And it was they who told Clem that there was a job in their little town for someone who was bilingual. Clem speaks a lot of German, not quite bilingual, but really pretty close. Could fake it on a good day. He's close. So the only clothes we had were the clothes that we had been wearing on our bike trip for 5 months of biking. They were also gross. And we had bike shoes, and he went to the job interview in that outfit, in his shoes, and he got the job. Because, remember, Clem is very persuasive. Clem got a job in a small German town translating tools. The company that he got the job for was called Dig Tools, because the brothers were named that was their last name, Dick, and they thought, we'll name our company Dick Tools. And one of his first assignments was finding a website. And he came home and he told them that, Dick.biz was taken, but they were just unavailable. They would have to do something else. So before that happened, this is when we actually got married, because he had dual citizenship at the time, and they said, it'll be a good deal for your wife if you get married because you'll pay lower taxes, she'll get to live there. We entered into a business deal. We flew home, got married, $10, changed our driver's licenses, and went out to lunch. That was like the big wedding. That was in 2000. We loved living in Germany. We traveled a ton, literally everywhere, all the time. If we had been friends then, you would have come to visit us because we were in the middle of Europe, and it was like 2 hours to anywhere, any border. And we ran and we biked and we did all kinds of fun things, but we were 25 and we felt like we'd retired at age 25. So Killjoy Joanna wanted to go to law school. This was lifetime plan B. If, getting paid to travel doesn't work out, we'll go to law school. I remember sitting with a bunch of law school catalogs in Germany, and there were buildings and logos and the snow-covered Wasatch with the Huntsman, that view of the Huntsman Center with the snow-covered Wasatch, and he's like, that's where we're going to go. We're going to go there. So we went. I actually went for my first year alone while he stayed in Germany, working at Dick Tools to help pay some bills. And I would fly back. I was strongly a mediocre law student. I was still speaking German in my head. I was flying home. My priorities were still adjusting. But I realized, Clem came out to visit one of those days when there was like 6 feet of snow everywhere, and we loved to ski, and he was just like, I'm not leaving. This is amazing. It is the best snow on earth. And so he decided to apply to law school. So, I was a strongly mediocre law student. Clem aced law school. Your professors would beg to give him Callies and beg to give him A's, and he was editor-in-chief, and he aced it. And even though he got, as Michael told you, the best jobs with the best judges and the best firms in town, that wasn't enough. So we decided to adopt kids too, right? So we've got 2 lawyer family, everyone trying to establish their career, and we decided to adopt kids. They have been amazing and challenging. They sometimes make 45 days in the rain look easy. I love you, Aziza. But there's no one I would rather raise children with than Clem because of his adventurous spirit, his capacity for persuasion, works on children as well. He's phenomenal. So if anyone is surprised that Clem wants to be in this very active, very social court where you can interact with all manner of humanity, I hope these stories give you some idea that he is up for the challenge and wants this challenge and wants this situation. And you guys have a good adventure buddy, Judge Baxter and Judge Robeson, and all of you. But be careful, because if you find yourself booking travel to Poland or call me and I'll talk you out of it. I love you, Clem, and I'm so happy for you, and I believe this is the true job. This job is made for you. You're going to be amazing.
And I just want to say before I administer the oath, the story about the toilet paper rolled maize, what a relief. I thought there was a mic up here, so maybe we need to come this way a little bit. Oh, there's a mic right over there. Let's do that. You want the kids to come up?
Yeah.
Test. Okay, how's it going to work best for the camera?
I was told that my right shoulder is flat.
That works?
Face the camera off.
The face of the camera. Does this work?
I guess my right shoulder is good.
This is going to work. That already should work. I, Clemens Landau,
I, Clemens Landau,
having been appointed to the office of Justice Court Judge,
having been appointed to the office of Justice Court Judge,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations, Judge Landau.
All right, Judge. So everything that you just heard is not true. Everything. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm going to recall all the warrants. I'm making some law jokes right now. If you're here on a pre-trial conference, I'm married to the director of the Indigent Defense Commission, so I'm going to make sure that you have an attorney. Okay? So everyone gets an attorney, and like I said, I'm so grateful and humbled to be here today, and that you all showed up, even without the bench warrant. I want to thank a few people as well. So this was also my first week on the job. And I was sure I wasn't going to have a voice by now. So for 6 years, I've been practicing appellate law. And when you're an appellate attorney, you have to speak in court about 15 minutes every 4 months. So that's pretty easy. And you can get cue cards, and you can figure out what you're going to say, and you can figure out the third alternative thing to say, and you just go up there and say it, and you're done. And I've spoken more in court this week than I have for the past 10 years. And so I'm emotional, but I'm also losing my voice. So there are two things going on here. So it's been a long week, and I don't have cue cards. So I'm just going to wing it. And I have been winging it. My objective number one, I had a jury trial on Tuesday, was not to have a mistrial on Tuesday. So I'm getting there. And the first person that I need to thank with 100% of my heart was Joanna. We used to be Miller. Then we got married. Then we changed it to Landau. And it's been an adventure of a lifetime. It's been a thrill a minute for the past 20 years. And it's been absolutely amazing. When she met me, I was a paramedic. The cast was nice. It was nice. We had a foosball table. We had a dishwashing machine that you could roll around. So we had this problem. We were like 4 guys living in a small space. So before you know it, there'd be a mountain of dishes, and they didn't belong to anyone. So I got her to use dishwasher, and it worked really well. And you just rolled it into the kitchen, you hooked it up, and you did the dishes, and it was great. And we would have friends over. I had a really diverse friendship circle because I was a paramedic, and you meet a lot of people in the community, and you say, come on over, have some turkey, and play foosball, and it was great. And if you feel like it, you can use the toilet paper or marble run. And that can be a lot of fun too, if you have nothing to do while you're in there. You just So you kind of get a sense of who I was at this point. I thought I was going to be a doctor. I kind of half-heartedly was doing that. I took the MCATs. I remember crying the whole way back from taking the MCATs, thinking that's not what I want to do with my life. And so it wasn't a time where I was particularly happy or had a lot of direction. And it was a time when Joanna Miller walked into my life via a connection that has nothing to do with acapella. I don't even know what that is. So yeah, I'm not in an acapella group, never was. She's put a lot of work into the person that you see standing before you, and it wouldn't have been possible without her. So it's that's if I say one thing, it's that. The next thing is you know, having the privilege of going to law school kind of mid to late 20s, and having a law school that is as amazing as the Utah Law School right here. I mean, we're in Germany, and Joanna showed me a bunch of brochures, and I pointed at the one that had mountains on it. I thought, oh, that sounds like fun, let's go there. Fred and other folks in Colorado said, don't go to Utah, you won't make it more than a year in Utah. Those people are. And look, here we are. We have no intent of leaving. We landed in the greatest city, and there's a great law. I mean, all these things came together, and it was so lucky that they all came together. And one of the things that came together right after law school was getting a clerkship with Judge Benson. And he's here today. I'm so glad that you made it, Judge. If, to the extent I do anything right in this job, it is because of that man. And if I do something wrong, it's my fault. But to the extent that my temperament is right and that I have compassion for the people that are appearing from, it's because he served as my example. It's so formative to have that first job out of law school be a quality job. And that's something that, frankly, for a lot of people going through law school, they don't have that, they're not that lucky. They don't get that first job with Judge Benson. They get a different first job, and it really colors your understanding of the profession. So that was incredibly lucky. The next stroke of luck was working with Parr Brown for a few years. They're, I think, the best large firm in town. I have to apologize to the beer bar, I think this is probably a huge problem for their business that this was scheduled on a Friday afternoon. Because normally, all of Parr Brown is at the beer bar by now, and that's how they get ahead on their weekend business, and now it's, I don't know what's going on there. Nothing, probably. So I'm glad that you guys showed up, and I'm glad that you took an interest in me and invested in me. And then I'm glad that the next best thing in town got put on my plate, and that was Zimmerman Jones Booher. It's so hard being a young attorney, and it's all about having other attorneys in your life that have a vision and that have imposed their will on the profession and said, I'm going to make this career into what I want to do and not just do what you're going to have me do. And that's something that my mentors at Parr Brown knew, and they carved out their niches, and Dave Ryman, carved out his niche and did something that he wanted to do, and he made it his own, and that's how you survive in this profession. And that's exactly what Michael Zimmerman, Linda Jones, and Troy Booher did. They said, look, we're not going to just follow a model, we're going to make our own model, and we're going to do things we love. And so I had that example for the next segment in my career, and I'm, again, the luckiest guy on earth to have that, because you want to be surrounded by people that have that kind of vision. And at some point, I realized that it wasn't and I think this is, again, a risk that you run when you just do your vision, because you teach people how to follow dreams, and then they might figure out that that's not their dream, so they're going to go do their own, so they leave. And I'm sorry that I left. But it's because of you. And I mean that in the best way. I left because of you, Troy, because you taught me how to leave. You taught me how to follow your dream and do what's right for you. And so I was put on a list for this job, I think, on January 5th. And on January 5th, okay, so again, appellate lawyer, it's, you can hear a mass chirp, there's nothing going on. I'm writing a 60-page brief. That's what I'm doing today. Man, January 6th, my phone is going off the hook. Clem, you apparently misread the ad. This isn't Justice of the Utah Supreme Court. This is Justice Court Judge. This is different. It's a different job. You messed up. Maybe you can call someone and say, sorry, that's not for me after all. I misread it. And the irony there was you knew that this person had taken that time. They were probably reviewing discovery, doing something really important. That's what civil attorneys do, is important things. So they said, I'm going to stop reading box 23 of Discovery, take time out of my day to tell Clem that he's thrown his career away. Okay, all right, well, you do that. And I listened to all those conversations, and I just thought, man, this is interesting. And Joanna kind of talked about a sorting hat, and so this was an interesting sorting hat for me. There was not a single non-attorney that reached out to me and said, Clem, not a good move. Those people understood. They know what the Justice Court's doing in the state. And there wasn't a single friendship. Facebook makes it possible. So people from college would connect with me and say, this is unbelievable. You're going to be perfect for this. This is exactly your temperament. The only people that reached out to me and said, this might not be a good fit, were attorneys. And they were almost exclusively civil attorneys. So I think that's something that we should think about. Because that's just not, I think, my vision of what this court is about. And I know it's been a while, there's been a lot of talking, so I'll just say, no, I'm not done with the thanks yet. So the other thing, sorry guys, there's food, but we're not going to so the other thing that happened was, and again, I'll take a little time out and kind of explain myself. Thanks to my kids, I go to Calvary Baptist Church a lot, and I've never had a bad experience there. And I think if you haven't been, it's kind of akin to maybe living in Paris and not knowing what the Eiffel Tower is. You should go. You should go. And for example, this week there was so the Jazz are playing today. I think there's a guy by the name of Tony Bradley on the Jazz. Does anyone know Tony Bradley? He doesn't play a lot. So his dad's a reverend, and so he doesn't. Maybe he will soon. I want that. Maybe this guy will get in, but no, he gets a point. He averages a point a game, 3 minutes here and there, garbage time probably. So anyway, his dad's a minister, and he came and gave a sermon this past Sunday, and the sermon was about, I was paying attention, weaknesses and taking strength from weakness and taking strength from sickness. And that's what I've been reflecting this week, because this week, this is ceremonial. They've already put me to work. And that level of court is about taking that weakness and turning it into greatness and having the patience to do that. And then I look back on my life, and there's things, I think I kind of got into it. I wasn't in a particularly strong place after college, and I met Joanna, and that became something really beautiful. And in about 6 or 7 years ago, I was infertile. And then the best thing came out of that place of weakness. The best thing in my life is that Quincy and Aziza and the very strong women, two black women from Texas, decided that we were going to they had every option in the world, and they picked us. They said, oh, we'll send them to Utah with you. And so I took on that responsibility, and I took it on with a great deal of reverence for the choice that those strong people made in their lives. And now I got to get back to the justice courts on that. So the learning experience that I've had from 2010 when Aziza was born and 2012 when Quincy was born has been phenomenal. It's been unmatched. I don't think you kind of, in our society, get a chance to slip roles the way I've slipped roles. To live in one form of consciousness and then slip roles and be introduced to another form. Anyway, okay, so let's get back to the Justice Court. So this is my one vignette about the Justice Court. We had a training last week, and one of the things we did was watch Whose Streets. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with that documentary. It's a very raw documentary. It's about Ferguson, and it's told unabashedly from the perspective of a black documentarian and her family and some other black residents of Ferguson, and how that experience was, and how that episode played out from their perspective. So it didn't purport to take anyone else's perspective. And it's a raw movie. It's a Malcolm X movie. It's a movie that prominently featured Malcolm X's quote, "If you put a knife in my back 9 inches, take it out 6. Don't expect me to thank you for that. Don't expect me to thank you until the wound is healed," and that you've had a part in that. And so we have a room full of predominantly white Justice Court judges watching this movie. And I've been to Sundance quite a bit, so I know that when we have an uncomfortable movie and you have a filmmaker that's really trying to, you get this, you're ready for a really good conversation, and the first question is, I noticed that you used the Sony handheld instead of the Mitsubishi. What was the thought process behind picking the Sony? And you can see the filmmaker saying, "Did we just watch the same?" I'm making a statement about Ferguson, and you're talking to me about Sony. We're on different planets. And so I was kind of braced for that, because as Michael noted, we get Justice Court judges from all over in Utah. And the first thing Judge Baxter offered was, we read the Ferguson report and we watched this. And, let me say this. It's so good that we scheduled it today. All the appellate judges are down in southern Utah, so we can say everything we want about the appeal system. And don't tell them this, but the Ferguson movie, Blue Streets, there was a court that was involved in that movie, and it wasn't the Supreme Court of Missouri. Because people weren't rioting because the Supreme Court wrote the footnote wrong. People were rioting in part because the justice courts in that community were part of that knife in that community's back. And they were imposing additional penalties. They were simply not doing things that respected the humanity of the residents there. And so Judge Baxter stood up and said, we reviewed that and we stopped doing those things. And that's a court I want to be a part of. That's a court that says, we didn't make a big thing of it. We didn't say, let's roll out a big program and let's get everyone to thank us for doing it. They just went ahead and did it because it's the right thing to do. And I put the motto, and I'm going to stop. I put the motto in the program for a reason. The other thing that I've noticed was, their materials at the training said, the mission of these justice courts is to improve the quality of life in our communities. And I'm familiar with a lot of courts, and most of them have a mission that it's something in Latin. It's not something that anyone can relate to. It's something, again, it's buried in a footnote. It's got it doesn't mean anything to the person on the street. And that's a mission that I'm so excited about joining the judges of the Salt Lake District Court and fulfilling that mission and doing little things to kind of encourage healing in our communities. So I'll stop right there. That seems like a good one.